someone to bury. Added to my family tree. Our love when we disagree. Our love when we fight. When you on my team, it's a good.
Okay, that was good. That was good.
When you on my team, it's a good thing. Hella fun montage movie scene. Watch it all fly by like a dream.
Just good to go ahead and start, baby.
Oh,
Wow,
baby.
baby.
As long as
live.
Brian doesn't die in the process.
That could happen.
But it's cool because JMN is back, baby.
Look at it here.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back
back.
to JMN Live. That's Joker's Movie Network. I'm your host, Joker. The other host, my guy Splash here, with special guest included.
I'm here.
Brian, how's it going?
It's going, man.
It's going?
I've had a cough for 3.5 weeks.
I told you go to the doctor, but what do?
I
You don't go to the doctor.
chug cough medicine.
I mean, cough medicine can work, I guess.
Yeah, I've tried 3 different. I'm on my 3rd cough medicine, so
Well,
we'll see where we get after that
it's
one.
a start. But how we doing? We meant to have episode 5 out earlier this week, but for some reason OBS wasn't wanting to cooperate with the webcam, just didn't want to show up, so we said, let's wait on it. We're going to have a big show today anyway because we're doing all things spoiler talk for Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. So this is your warning now. Anyone that's watching, whether this is live on the Twitch channel or if you're watching the recording on YouTube, that'll be up later. It even says it right there on the screen, spoiler talk.
Yeah,
so if we spoil the movie for you, that's on you.
If you're in here not wanting to be spoiled and see the giant spoiler talk on the screen, it's on you at that point.
Yeah, so this is all going to be straight spoilers. We're talking about the movie and its entirety, all the little tiny things in there. So this is your last chance. 3, 2, 1. Spoilers start now.
Thought it was weird that Captain Kirk died in this movie.
Yeah, it's really weird he popped
crazy.
up.
I think I saw the wrong movie.
What movie are we what?
Oh, no.
Oh.
I saw the Office reboot.
Oh no!
But I mean, hey, it was a good time.
I was watching Spaceballs.
I
Again?
watched Hot Tub Time Machine 4.
Whoa.
Yeah.
And Brian is never again allowed back on the show.
That was nice knowing you guys.
So you can probably get a little closer, too. Unless you want to be like all the way
I
back
mean,
there.
I just keep. I kept hitting the leg of your chair.
Oh, you're fine. I'm not going anywhere.
Well, no shit.
Throw 'em
you're
out of the
not
way.
going anywhere.
Who needs them?
So, where do we want to start with this? It's the last movie.
It is the last movie.
The last movie in the Skywalker saga. It is no more. 1 through 9 done. We got 2 spin-offs. It was a good time. Next movie won't be for a while.
2022.
2022
Yeah.
with the director being announced in January. So in a couple of weeks we're going to get the director for the new Star Wars movie.
Is it gonna be a trilogy?
It's supposed to be the start of a trilogy. Going to be set for 2022.
There's been talks that they're moving away from trilogies because they feel like they're being too restricted by just the 3 movie format.
So it might be more than a trilogy.
It might be. Who
It
knows?
could-
But it's going to be...
It's gonna be as long as the story needs to be.
These next 3, at least, it's scheduled for 2022, 24, and 26.
Because it's gonna alternate with Avatar,
Yep,
correct?
alternating with Avatar.
Good old James Cameron.
Oh boy, it's so much fun.
Yeah,
More
I-
blue people.
I want to see them move past the 3 movie format. I feel like it severely hurt this saga, this portion of the saga, because Rey, Poe, Finn, like they had too much in 3 movies. Like there was too much to be done and not enough time.
I agree.
So, when you say you want to move away from the trilogy format, do you think just like one-off movies or more than 3?
More.
I would say
So, like,
just
5?
do as many movies as you need to get the whole story in.
Okay.
Yeah, because this approach of like, well, JJ's going to do the first one, and then Ryan's going to do the second one, and then Colin's going to do the third one.
Colin's going to drop out.
Yeah, then by the time you actually get there, it was like, well, we actually have to bring Ryan in a little earlier than we expected because JJ moved through it and definitely doesn't want to do the second one. So,
Yeah.
like, okay, let's go ahead and get him started on this one.
And then
Okay, that movie's almost ready to go by the time The Force Awakens is even done shooting. Great. But Colin Trevorrow dropped out, so...
And then there was like Ryan Johnson might do the third one, and then JJ was like, I'll do it. I'll come in and help.
Well, I mean, after the backlash from The Last Jedi, I'm pretty sure they're going to be like, take a break, Ryan. We'll come back to you.
I'm glad they're still giving him his own set of movies.
I mean, as of right now, it is still set to go, so it's not over yet. And everyone thinks, they got rid of Benioff and Weiss for that trilogy. Now they're like, great, now just get rid of Ryan Johnson trilogy and everything will be perfect. And I'm like,
I think
they're going to keep it.
they should. I think Ryan Johnson's a phenomenal storyteller, and I feel like giving him his own set of movies to tell his own story instead of picking off where somebody else left off
Yeah.
I think he'll do a good job with it.
I mean, it's possible. I know, like, I like him as a director.
Yeah, I love his work as a director.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, everyone's going to hate on him for The Last Jedi, but it's the fact is, like, you hate the story. You don't hate the actual, like, look of the film. I mean, you could, I guess, but...
Yes, but I think he was just stuck in that spot where they didn't really have this big plan from Lucas. It wasn't like, hey, Ryan, come over and direct this movie that we're just putting in your lap with a complete story. No, they were like, hey, man, write, direct, and get us through this. Like,
they wrote all 3 movies. Like, JJ wrote the first one, Ryan wrote the second one, and then JJ and somebody else wrote the third one.
Yeah, so...
So, I mean, like, had they come in and been like, we've got it written. Like, this entire 3-movie plan. Like, look at Marvel. Like, Iron Man was a movie that, I mean, we all looked at it. It was like, oh, cool, it's Iron Man. They did Iron Man 1, 2, and 3. And then 10 years later, they're putting a bow on that entire thing that started in 2008.
If they were to start, like, a 23-movie cycle of just a new story, that would be ridiculous. I think if done right, I think it'd be cool. But
well, I think if you do your own Star Wars universe, I think that's cool. Because, I mean, there's so many avenues you can go. Like...
I think you would burn the audience out right now, particularly.
Yes.
I don't think you need to do it right now, but yeah.
Right now, I think you'd burn the audience out. And that's just Star Wars overload for so many people. Because you got to think, the MCU didn't have the advantage at first of having TV shows and side movies and all that other stuff. It was just like, here's the straightforward. We're doing Iron Man, Thor, Captain America, Hulk. Like, we're getting these guys out here and into play. And then we're moving forward. With Star Wars, like, we've already had, this makes 11 movies now of full story.
This is the 11th movie.
And then the animated Clone Wars, so 12-ish? Because there's 9 episodes.
Yeah, okay, I guess you could count the Clone Wars. Hold that thought just one second. So we got Darkness, 5632. There's one thing about this movie that bothers me badly, and I wonder what you guys think.
Fire away.
Sure, yeah, fire away.
But yeah, I think
until
12, he responds.
12 movies.
So 12, and you've been around since 77, really? Like, that's not bad on pace.
It's spaced out.
But the new trilogy was like, movie, Rogue One, movie, Solo,
movie,
then break, because I think they panicked a little bit.
So I'm curious, I think. Let's say Rogue One and Solo never happened, but they still kept, movie, space, movie, space, movie.
I think it would have been a little bit better.
Probably would have been fine, but going particularly from Last Jedi directly into Solo,
that was just
terrible.
The break, them going back to May was a mistake.
I don't know why. I still don't know why they did that, because like having the 5-month gap, there was no time for advertising or anything. It was just really last minute, so you had adverts for both movies going at the same time.
I think the issue was Kathleen wanted to stay in December, and Bob Iger said, nope, we're good. Well, we can go in May. We are who we are. We'll go in May.
We're Disney. We're going to make money.
Yeah, like
I think
people will come to us. We don't need to go get them. And Solo wasn't the movie to do that with. If you would have told me, like, hey, here is 7, and then this next one is, let's say, a Luke-based story, or something that you can more easily identify with, like, right away what this is, yeah, people would have went directly into it.
And I wonder if it's... Okay, here
we go.
So what I hate is how they did the Sith fleet. They basically ruined the Star Destroyers. I am sorry, but you do not make them act as stationary targets for ships just to attack. Why did all of them need a giant Death Star laser on them? If anything, they should have a few Star Destroyers protecting the ships with the beams on them. I'm just mad because that's not what they're supposed to do in the movie.
Well, I think the story behind why they were stationary was because it's such a dark and dull planet that the people that are driving them cannot see in front of them.
I guess that's...
And they had to use a comm tower to raise and lower the ships to get them into the atmosphere. So when the comm towers went down, they had no sense of like going anywhere, but to counter argument, you're just going up. I don't know how hard that could be.
Here, let's break the comment down a little bit. So he hated that the Sith fleet ruined the Star Destroyers. You don't make them act as stationary targets. The issue I can see from that, just basically on the screen, is that in the one shot from the trailer, you could count about 350 of them. The I mean, yeah, it does kind of make them stationary targets because one, they're long range, large blasters. They're not meant to take out tiny craft from like close range, and you have them literally like shoulder to shoulder, like we are now.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of room, so yeah, they did kind of become stationary targets. I think it's the concept, the idea is the fact that they were stationary. They were meant to be sent out. That's why you had the comm tower, and then you had the First Order Star Destroyer with a comm tower attached to it as well, so it could send all the ships out because they were supposed to be sent out to destroy all the other planets. And they all had a Death Star-like weapon, but we've seen that before in Legends. The original Eclipse Star Destroyer and the Eclipse II both had turbo laser cannons directly on the front of the ship that was meant to destroy planets and other large starcraft. It was the same kind of concept. You could only shoot it in the one straight line. It didn't just like go out all over the place. You had to be angled up right with the target, which we kind of saw then. And even then, if you go to the new Venator Star Destroyers that we see in Battlefront 2, especially the Starfighter campaigns on Camino, there is a Venator Star Destroyer that has a super laser on the bottom of it that you have to disable it and all that stuff. So we've seen it before. I don't think it's like different for them to have it. I do think at one point it's kind of overkill, but that does seem to be like the Empire, the Sith. That's like their thing. Just blow up all the planets.
I do also want to kind of preface that and say, like, I don't think as well as Palpatine planned this out, I would say, I don't think he really think they were going to find them.
Find what?
The planet.
Yeah, he didn't think that they were ever.
Oh,
gonna
yeah.
Exegol was only found by Wayfinder, a Sith Wayfinder.
He foresaw, and he saw it through, because in reality, had Rey gone through with it, killed Palpatine, and they do essence transfer or whatever they were hinting at there, what I think would have happened was that they would have done the same thing. Palpatine would have continued with his Force Lightning attack. Darkness, again, thank you so much for the follow. We really appreciate that. He would have used the whole lightning thing, took down the entire fleet as Palpatine was in the middle of doing, and then they would have sent out all the Star Destroyers, conquered all of the remaining New Republic worlds, and the Final Order, as they're calling it, would have taken over.
It would have literally destroyed everything.
And part of what I was going to add on to the Star Destroyers being stationary thing is, like you were saying with the shoulder-to-shoulder, we've seen that before, that when there's too many of them, it's been in books and things like that they can't really operate so well unless they have the radius around them to actually move.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of what it is, and you see it in the Aftermath trilogy as well, where one X-Wing was able to navigate between like 3 Star Destroyers for, it was at least like 10 minutes.
Yeah,
because they just couldn't do anything. They had to send other fighters out to go hit it.
It's a smaller target. They risk missing the target and hitting another Star Destroyer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's
and,
part
and
of
we
what
even
it
saw that
is.
originally in Episode 5, Empire Strikes Back, when the Millennium Falcon is avoiding them because he runs into 3 of them, and there's that one shot where he's flying up and then he flies down in between them, and then 2 of them like converge and just like scratch into each other, and you see them all inside the ship like falling all over the place. So it's really hard, which is why I think it was clever for them to have that stationary tower, allowing them to like rise the fleet all that in one motion, so they all move at the same time. They don't risk crashing into each other, just causing like a array of stuff.
Yeah, because one bad accident would have caused something catastrophic.
Yeah, it's a domino effect. One Star Destroyer would have hit another one, and they would have just hit each other, and it would have been...
It'd been almost like the Endor fight, where like if one ship crashes into the other, you start to see an entire like...
the whole thing's just gonna domino effect, like we saw in the beginning of The Last Jedi with the Republic bombers.
Yeah.
Went back and forth. So stationary targets, that did kind of happen.
Wasn't planned out very well, I will say that. But I think in essence, it was just more off the idea that they were never supposed to find Exegol, and they never expected a large fleet invasion on the planet.
Because I mean, you're sitting there and you see that many ships roll up.
Yeah, you're kind of screwed.
So the second part, why do they all need to have giant Death Star lasers? Honestly, that's just an Empire Sith thing to do at this point. I wish I could give a better answer than Palpatine likes giant guns, I guess, but that's always been the thing. The Death Star 2, they had Super Star Destroyers that had that power. Starkiller base.
And Palpatine was probably on a world-ending
Operation
anyway.
Cinder.
Yeah, I think it's off of the idea that Palpatine's biggest flex on everybody in the galaxy is that, one, he personally can operate in the shadows, but while still controlling the hardest, biggest arm of the army. Like, they were always his puppets almost to play with.
And on top of that,
giving that like multiple layers of power where he can be like, oh, one planet's resisting, and I'll send you there, and I'll send you to their sister planet, and I'll send you to their moon. Like, I think he was just covering all of his bases and then
Yeah.
got screwed again because of the Exegol surprise.
And then the last part there. So if anything, they should have had fewer Star Destroyers protecting the ships that had a turbo laser cannon on them.
I think that's fair.
Strategically, I think that would have made more sense. And again, I think going back to this, the fact that they had a large scale of ships, I think the idea was if a fleet comes out of hyperspace into Exegol or wherever it could have been, you see a fleet of 300 Star Destroyers plus, you're probably going to be like, I'm going to leave
I'm
now.
gonna head out. All right, I'm gonna head out.
Because there's no way. Like, they took out like one or two, and then they started getting shot down left and right, and they're like, might have a problem here.
Yeah, and I mean, you got to the point right there when before the big fleet showed up that.
And then even again, we had I think the Sith Star Destroyers were very reminiscent of the Dreadnought class destroyer that we had at the beginning of The Last Jedi. That had the cannons that were prepped, not somewhat with not enough power, but they had enough power to at least destroy the base on Kudar, is that what it's called? The planet in the Ilenium system that had the resistance base.
I don't remember what it's called. It's always supposed to be.
I also felt originally Snoke was supposed to be the big bad, but instead they just had to bring back Palpatine. So
I feel like that's probably pretty accurate.
Yeah.
I think that they got a little too far in over their heads after The Force Awakens and weren't really ready to give Snoke this big,
reveal power.
yeah, this big reveal kind of moment. When they got to The Last Jedi, I think the conversation was probably, okay, JJ has said multiple times that Palpatine has always been in the plan somewhere along the way. So do we spend an hour trying to give you guys this big, Snoke is so-and-so, he's a moon, and he comes from this planet or whatever, or do we just have Kylo use him as this kind of stepping stone just to find out that he's still not the biggest fish out there? Mm-hmm. I think that was probably the decision they had to make. I really wish they would have done more with Snoke. That was my biggest grievance with The Last Jedi.
Yeah, I feel like Snoke deserved something bigger because I mean, you go into The Force Awakens and the start of that trilogy, and you see Snoke, and you're like, oh snap, like this dude is the guy. And then you go into Last Jedi, and he starts, and he literally, as a hologram, grabs Hux with the Force and drags him around like his ragdoll, like head HBIC, big man on campus. And then for Kylo to do what he did, I think that was a really good moment for him. But I do think that I felt we could have gotten this trilogy done with Snoke in the last movie, and had something to do with him getting taken out, maybe even by Palpatine. I don't know.
You could have orchestrated something different.
I feel like Snoke should have been in the final movie more so than just a bunch of different Snoke people in a tank.
That was an interesting choice. Yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of interesting to me.
And I mean, I had seen a lot of theories and all that stuff since when the Force Awakens came out. They're like, maybe is Snoke just a pawn from somewhere? We'll get to your comment in just a second. Is Snoke a clone of someone? Is he just like a tool being used by someone? And that seems to what it was the case was. Palpatine made Snoke. No idea how. Obviously, he was a clone of some sort. That we saw like more of them in that tank or whatever being created. But just like, what was he a clone of? What was he made from? Why was it that he looked like he did? Because there was always that talk of like, is Snoke secretly Plagueis? Is that going to be a thing? But evidently not. So I don't know. I do think it's a big mess, but I do see now why. And originally Andy Serkis said Snoke is just Snoke.
I think that was a good thing for Andy Serkis to say.
I mean, and for the most part, he was right. Snoke was just Snoke.
But he was
There's nothing else to it. And
he was also a pawn.
Very much so.
And so, I feel like if they were going to give him a reveal like that, that's what it should have been. He was just this kind of walk-off piece of trash.
He was this dude that was really strong.
And even trash according to or even what was considered powerful in our galaxy was still trash according to Palpatine.
But was he like...
That's fair.
I get what... Here's a question that I have with it, and we'll get right back into him. Okay. His question, but do you think that Snoke, when he was brought up, that Palpatine just didn't think he was enough? Because, I mean, the Sith Lord thing...
I think Palpatine needed somebody to architect the First Order without him being there to do it. And this will transfer right into Darkness's question, because when it comes to General Pride, if I had to guess, he's probably one of the kids that Palpatine had been working with, because we know that in secret Palpatine had been taking kids to train them at least all the way back before the Battle of Jakku.
Yeah,
At
so
least that far, if not further back before that.
in some of the new canon novels and comics, there was a lot of talk that a lot of kids were being taken by the First Order, as you know, Finn was, and some of the new characters we met on in the Endor system, they were taken as kids to be stormtroopers. They didn't have a name or anything like that. So it's very possible that he was just one of these kids that was taken either from Jakku or from another planet, and he was just raised. But he does mention, like he was there like during the Empire, and he mentions it here that he served him during the Civil War. I don't know.
I wouldn't.
And that's honestly all I got. I don't know. Maybe we'll get more of a backstory. It's probably a comic book.
I was about to say,
something.
I wouldn't be surprised if we got a comic series or a book or something anytime soon. I wouldn't be surprised at all if that was one of the topics that they covered.
Because there was a lot of people in that I guess that main office room where they were having that meeting. And they had a bunch of generals, moffs, whatever you were going to call them, just like lining up there and talking. And I was like, some of these people could be other people from other books and comics and whatnot. So like, who knows what it could actually be?
And now, being the non-book junkie that I am, having just started,
Will come out in 2020.
A Palpatine surviving novel coming out in 2020. I got nothing on that, so I don't know.
We'll have to figure that one out. But I just started the Aftermath series, and I told you that through 4 chapters, you can pretty much tell what's about to happen. After seeing the movie and then listening to the 4 chapters on an audiobook, like, the books walk straight into this. Like, you can tell what's going to happen by reading 4 chapters of Aftermath.
Pretty much.
After seeing the new movie.
And like that would be my best guess, like I said, with Pride, is that he's probably somebody who Palpatine either just kind of coaxed out in the post-Clone Wars era and was like, hey, I need you, I trust you, because we see that there's canon proof that he's been doing that.
Yeah, and then there's canon proof, this fleet was in hiding for a long time with a lot of people there, so maybe he was the one that was helping build the Sith Empire, the Sith fleet behind closed doors, so no one really knew about him, so everyone at the time was just focused on Rey Sloane and Gallius Rax and all of the other big surviving members of the Empire that was just trying to struggle to stay afloat. Meanwhile, Palpatine's over there like, hi, no one knows I'm here.
Yeah, because we see kind of this this change in the Aftermath books where it's like the Empire is dead or dying, but in reality is still alive, just in secret, so that's fine. Like he's just, we know now, just operating from the deep shadows. But that really got to the point of, I don't know where we're heading in the Empire's direction, but the First Order starts to rise, and you wouldn't be paying so much attention to those old Imperials. If Pride was an old Imperial, you're like, okay, he's on the run, he's hiding, we can't find him. Oh well, old enough that he'll probably die before he's a problem.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you now have guys like Hux, that son of Imperials kind of lineage, that are taking over in the First Order. Those are now your primary targets. You're forgetting more about the Prides, and you're leaning more on the Huxes or whoever. If Rey Sloane's still around, like you're looking for those people who might still be able to carry this thing forward.
100%.
But I do think that we'll get more information on how this all happened. I feel like Aftermath would be a really good if it had a 4th book, to be honest. If it had a book just talking about the come up of this moment. But I mean,
I'll let you finish those, and then you can tell me
if
you think there should be a 4th
I have to
one.
finish it, but
I'll leave this last comment, and then I do want to get into the movies because I don't have that much time with Brian. We want to get as much out as we can. So, not a Marvel chat, which is fine. We talk all things movies, comics, everything here, so you're fine there. I'm hoping and praying that Disney does not ruin the Marvel movies like they did with Star Wars. I think the MCU is becoming what Star Wars once was. So let me break that down. I don't think they've necessarily ruined Star Wars. I think they've made choices that I don't agree with. But I've yet to see something that absolutely makes me say, nope, this is ruined, do not like. And I think the Marvel movies are doing fine so far. And again, there have been choices in some movies that I don't like in between, but it doesn't mean I don't think it's, for me personally, ruined. And I don't understand when you say I think the MCU is becoming what Star Wars once was.
Oh, I totally understand that.
Okay.
So what he's saying with the MCU is becoming what Star Wars once was is we haven't seen a phenomenon like Star Wars.
That's okay.
The way it took over in pop culture since it happened. The MCU was the first attempt at that. Like Nolan's Batman kind of came close actually. Like although there were only 3 of them, after The Dark Knight, he was on top of the world. Everyone loved Batman during that
100%.
stretch. But the MCU really is the first thing to really be like, we're here and we are the dominant thing.
We have a big connected story.
You know, like Lord of the Rings is great, and it for a moment it held pop culture's attention. Game of Thrones came close on TV to replicating something like Star Wars, but yeah, the MCU is definitely the powerhouse.
Phase 4 is a very, very, very big moment for the MCU because you're just coming off of arguably one of the most the biggest storytelling arc in the history of movies, with a 10-year arc that ended with the highest grossing movie of all time. And now you have to go, well, what are we doing now?
That's, yeah, absolutely.
And I think this is a very pivotal point for the MCU, and if their Phase 4 movies don't get off to a hot start and really, really, like, spark this new story arc that they're going into, I mean, it could be interesting to see where it goes from there.
And I want to make one quick comment on that, but then I want to go ahead and break down the Rise of Skywalker. But, like, and again, you know, like, exactly like you said, you know what was coming. You know, like, we got, when Infinity War was announced, and it was like, okay, this is going to be the big end of this. But after that, you know, we're moving out into some bigger things. We're getting the Eternals, possibly Nova. We're spreading out into farther in the Marvel Universe that's really weird stuff. So it's not going to be like the stuff we've been so used to now. It's going to become very different. But that's because, again, the comic world became very different.
And
yeah, and I mean, the Infinity Saga is one of the biggest sagas in comic books.
yeah, it's definitely, on the Marvel side of things, probably the easiest one they could have gone for. It was the most
it's a great start.
grounded, it was the most human.
Yeah.
Now we're going to get out there and do the weird stuff. And just like with the MCU and what's coming forward, I think Star Wars at this rate is your mileage may vary. If you loved 4, 5, and 6, you maybe didn't love 7, 8, and 9. Maybe they're too different. Maybe 7 was too much like 4 that you couldn't get past that. Maybe you loved 7 and 9, but you hated 8. I don't know what your personal preference is, but Star Wars is getting to a point where it's kind of aging past the audience that it first went. What it grew up with, it's kind of moving past that. The Last Jedi did a lot of that to set it up. 9 pulled it back a little bit in that regression. It wasn't unrecognizable from the old Star Wars movies.
Right.
Where The Last Jedi was a lot closer and it was more kind of mental and cerebral. This movie came in and said, everybody can watch this. We're closing this out for everybody. But that does make me wonder, are we going to get more Rian Johnson-y going forward? Are we going to get more mental and cerebral about Star Wars?
Right.
I don't know. I'm excited.
So, yeah.
I want to take something that he said that makes a lot of sense to me. Because he talked about how the new trilogy kind of phased out some of the older fans. Like, this isn't the Star Wars that you once knew.
Yeah.
And I feel like putting that into putting a bow on the whole Marvel turning into Star Wars thing, there are going to be people that aren't going to like these new Marvel movies.
No,
because
absolutely.
they are not what they were during the Infinity Saga.
Yeah.
Because the Infinity Saga is so specific on how things get from point A to point B to the end, and that it's going to be weird. Like, at first, I probably won't understand it because I'm not very big into the Marvel comics, and I'll have to read up on more stuff. But I do think there are going to be a lot of people that probably won't like the Marvel movies, the first few ones.
I mean, and it's
at least the Eternals. At the very least, people are going to start having questions. But I think it's a good thing for comic books. But let's get back to the Rise of Skywalker.
So I want to go and break down this whole movie. So this movie starts, and
We'll waste no time.
Smaller things that I noticed, just because like I'm into the music and stuff, that the opening crawl music was a little different at the beginning. Mm-hmm. They added the horn rip was a little different, and the dynamics of the trumpets were a little different. When I was sitting in the theater watching, I said, "Is this surround sound? Am I sitting in like the bad spot? Am I going to get half the audio? Oh no!" But then I was just like, "Oh, the rest is the same. I guess they just decided to make it different," which is fine. I was just like, "Okay, cool, that's new."
John Williams gets paid to do this stuff.
And this movie just starts fast.
Yeah,
jumps right in.
It gives me a question right off the start because, like, I mean, yeah, Kylo's on his way to go see Palpatine for the first time. Like, but how did he find the Wayfinder? And why did we not figure out how did he figure out that Palpatine was still alive?
Well, see, and here's the thing. This movie takes place a year after The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
We will get books.
Yeah, we'll get a book about it, but that's the biggest question I had right
There's
off
already
the
a
rip.
comic series starting, a recent comic series that just started about Ben's training with Luke.
It's gonna be really
before
good.
he turns to the Knights of Ren, so
But
that's finally going to get
that's probably the biggest question I had right off the rip is like, how did he know?
Yeah.
Again, with the year break and Palpatine being like, "I am all the voices that you heard in your head," I figured it was a mental thing. I figured Palpatine probably came into his head, whether as Vader or Snoke or whoever, and started guiding him towards that wayfinder.
See, and I absolutely loved that when you said, "I am every voice you've ever heard inside your head." The transition between Palpatine, Snoke, Vader, I was like, that makes a lot of sense, actually. Especially, you know, he's sitting there talking to the idol of Vader's melted helmet, and he's like, this is like giving me power. I'm hearing you through it. And it's like, is it really Vader you're thinking of? Is it the dark side claiming to be Vader? Is it actually this Palpatine? Which turns out it probably was Palpatine.
And we also figure out that bond that Rey and Kylo formed in The Last Jedi that Snoke set up supposedly still exists.
See, and you know, and I always wondered about that because he was like, it was I that bridged your minds together. But then at the very end of the movie, she's standing on the deck of the Falcon right before she raises the ramp. And they have that moment again.
And it kind of closes it.
Yeah, and I was just like...
And it kind of felt like a bookend.
Yeah, well, yeah, almost. They kind of left like a very open-ended cliffhanger, and you're like, why is that still happening? Are they stronger than we think they are? Was it really not Snoke? And obviously it was Palpatine, or just the branch between them.
So
I think it was kind of the destiny. I don't think it was physically Snoke who was like, and I'm in your brain and you're going to be connected. I think it was the circumstances were set. The field was set to make them be connected. Whoever the last great Jedi was going to be connected to the last great Sith, or at least the inheritor to the Sith Empire.
Right. And that's what I thought was so strange. Like, the way the movie opens, you know, we got the training sequence with Rey, which I thought was great. But there's, like, a lot of tension between the characters, and it's, like, ridiculous, because, like, Rey is just, like, in a really bad mood throughout the whole, like, half of this movie.
She's battling a lot.
Right. And I'm like, and it makes you think, it's like, it's one of the things that makes the Star Wars movies better when they have that long gap in between. You're like, what happened between this and this that she is so angry and she's got all this like rage pent up, and Poe is not happy with her either, and Finn's just like trying to hold the whole thing together.
I think it set it up pretty clearly that she's dealing with these ramifications of, now she kind of feels responsible for Luke dying. Now she kind of feels responsible for there not being like a resistance left because she wasn't able to do anything about it really, other than get them out of the cave.
And she's still kind of trying to figure out who she is.
Yeah, and then
battling the dark side.
This influence in her that she's been feeling at least since Octu and the cave and all that. And she knows there's something dark in her. She's trying to figure that out, but she doesn't know who she is. Now she doesn't have anyone except Leia, who's not really that adept in the Force to train with her. I think a lot of frustrations were building up on her. And so she's taking this time to like, if I can train, if I can read myself, then I'll know what to do. Meanwhile, we know exactly how Poe Dameron is. He wants to get out there and jump in the next.
He wants to
wing
blow
and
stuff
shit
up.
Yeah, that's what he wants
up.
to do. And when she's kind of being a pacifist almost, just like staying on the planet, trying to train, we saw how far along she came with the mental stuff. She was literally floating herself and all those rocks. Like,
yeah, that was a pretty awesome introduction to her for the movie.
Yeah, it's like we're clearly seeing her progress, but at the same time we were seeing a regression in her confidence. And it's because she has all these questions. And I think by the time we get to the end of the movie, clearly she's lost a lot of those.
Yeah.
And that's why the main theme of Leia telling her, like, embrace who you are. Don't run from whatever that means to you.
Yeah.
And then you could see, and it progresses through the movie. I mean, she opens the movie with the rocks and her sitting there focused, saying, be with me, be with me, be with me, and nobody's responding. And then at the end of the movie, it bow ties it, and we'll get into that when we get there. But
fair.
Yeah, she's battling a whole lot. And I think she's starting to kind of figure out, like, why I have the powers that I have. And she's not necessarily putting one and one together as far as, like, her heritage, but she kind of has a little bit of an idea that she's from that darker side, and she has that past. And then we remember, like, in the prequels, when Anakin was being trained and talking about getting your training done early. Like, she was well old.
Yeah, she was definitely past the Jedi training.
And so was Luke. But
yeah.
But she was definitely past the age of which Jedi get trained. So she's going to go through those struggles and just battle with her demons pretty much. So I think she's just trying to figure out who she is as a Jedi and how she fits in as far as in the order, because I mean, for all we know, at that moment she's the only one left. So like, I bet she feels like it's all on her.
I mean, that's a very good possibility. It's just, it was so different, and like both of the times they just felt like they were like hiding things from us, like throughout the movie. Like they mentioned Exegol And she's like, wait, I know what this is. So she went and she read the book. But at first I was like, does she know what Exegol is? She's just going to like keep it from everyone? That seems a little weird. But then there are just other times where it's like, you know who you are. And she's like, nope, I don't know what you're talking about. Definitely not Palpatine. No, you're crazy. What do you know that I don't? Kind of thing. It felt very like...
Well, Kylo was really the only one that's like, you know who you are.
Kind of like pressing it on her, yeah. But she was being very just like abrasive about it, I guess you could say.
So
I think she was in a little bit of a denial.
Yeah, definitely denial. And also, she, at least as far as we know, unless it was like as a very, very tiny child, has probably never even made contact with Palpatine before this.
Yeah.
Like,
her parents...
She's young.
Her parents literally sacrificed themselves to keep her away from Palpatine.
Yeah, so like, there's probably some kind of echo, because we see, which is something I thought was one of the more interesting points of the movie, that Rey can definitely read those Force remnants. She can do the Force echoing situation like Cal Kestis can in Fallen Order. And when she touches that dagger and she hears like the screaming and all of that, I was like, that kind of sounded like the yells we were hearing back in 7 when she has the visions and all that. I was like, that's very interesting. I'm wondering where they're going with this.
And let's go ahead and go towards the dagger. So, we've gone through that. We see some training exercises. Kylo Ren meets Palpatine. They're like, we don't have a lot of people. We barely have anything. We're trying to get troops together. No one's coming. After the Battle of Crate, everyone was just like, sorry, you guys are on your own.
Yeah.
So they go looking for this dagger. So we get our first new planet, which is Pisana.
It's another desert planet.
Right, and this is after the Millennium Falcon Ice World thing with we got the news of the spy in the First Order that gave them information. They got away. They came back. It was on fire. More going back and forth. You get through all that. So they leave. They're going to Pisana. They're looking for this wayfinder that they believe is in the ship that crashed on Pisana and was just left there.
The guy's name was Osco, correct? Was it Osco?
I think something like that.
It was something. I think it was Osco.
Yeah, it's either Akko or Osco or something like that.
So, and you get another correlation immediately. Because when they see the ship, what they think is Osco's ship, it's the same ship that Rey was dropped off with.
But before we even go that far, we get introduced to a great character once again. Lando Calrissian comes back.
Get reintroduced to
and I thought
the goat.
I thought it was a great way to introduce his character because the way he was dressed, it was very similar to his reveal in Return of the Jedi.
Yes.
He was working as one of Jabba's guards or whatever you want to call him. The same kind of he had like the same kind of like mask, Kabuto look feel, and I was just like, that's really cool. He takes it off. He's like, I'm Lando Calrissian.
Everybody's like, we know who you are.
Yeah, and I thought it was pretty great.
But yeah, and they go, and Lando's like, yeah, we were here with Luke when he was looking for that Wayfinder. And we find out that Luke was on the search because he had a suspicion that Palpatine was still alive. So
that's definitely going to be a throwback book.
That's got to be something, yeah. So
it kind of has to be, because if he had that suspicion... Now, we come forward in The Last Jedi, and he's cut himself off from the Force and all of that, but this had to have been some time ago. Like, we know it couldn't have been, like, recent, because he hasn't been connected for a long time. And
I feel like I want to read Heir to the Jedi, because it's another canon novel, and I was wondering, I was like, maybe they touched on that and that, and we just didn't know about it? Probably not, because I'm not exactly sure where that book falls on the timeline.
Yeah, I don't know where it's at in the...
So I couldn't really make a comment on that, but, I mean, it's very possible we could get another younger cast book. So I was just talking about like the younger Luke, Han, and all that, looking for this stuff on all these other planets just to see what happens.
Or even a comic series. I feel like that would be a really good comic series. It sounds like it to me.
But I mean, yeah, a lot of that
either
stuff,
way.
Yeah, a lot of that could go either way depending on how big they wanted the story to be.
Yeah.
But we find this dagger underground. Everyone thought it was the dagger of Mortis, which I'm glad it wasn't.
Yeah, I never wanted that to be.
I was about to say, if that's the case, this makes 0 sense. I'm about to walk out.
But yes, they find the dagger. And of course,
she's got healing powers.
And which, if you watched The Mandalorian before you watched,
episode 9, you kind of saw like force healing was.
You saw Baby Yoda use his force healing. So I guess that was the only thing in I guess that was a pretty big reason why they were like, we're gonna put this on Wednesday.
And we're building up to a big moment in the movie, and then we finally get to see more of the Knights of Ren for the first time.
That was really cool. I
love their look.
The Knights of Ren went on a hunting spree, and that's what I need. Just
like Captain Phasma, they were probably misused as a whole throughout the trilogy, but how they were used in 9 was fantastic.
Yeah, I thought it was good.
Really enjoyed
They really just like, because we don't really we don't see them fight really at all except until the very end of the movie, and it's not that much of a fight. But even then, because they work with Kylo Ren, they are part of this organization called the Knights of Ren. You figured they're pretty strong, scary people to fight against. So, like, they're really just always just looming around. You see them, you're like, I don't think they can take them because I honestly don't know what they're capable of.
They looked pretty badass.
And then obviously they end up capturing Chewbacca and they put him in their transport to send him off.
And then the first big, like, arguably one of the biggest moments of the movie happened.
That's fair. You know, like, they try to get away and Rey's trying to stop them, and
Kylo's
Kylo Ren
trying to
shows
stop
up.
her.
She damn near kills Kylo by cutting off the wing of his TIE fighter.
That which I mean, if you saw the original trailer for the movie,
Yeah, the same shot. I thought that was cool.
still a great shot scene.
Because I was wondering, I was like, when I saw that in the trailer, I was like, how is this going to play into the movie, or is this just one of those like
we put it in there because it looks cool, and we're not going to actually
kind of thing? But they used it really well, and what happened was exactly what I thought was going to happen. So that was
she
pretty
just
cool.
yoinked the wing off.
I don't know how he survived that because that thing went
Yeah.
tumbling, and I was like, no.
And then
he
it
probably
exploded.
stopped himself before he
Probably.
got to the end. Like, he probably froze himself and then...
But yeah, I mean,
But then, yeah, he starts doing the same thing. They both start pulling on the transport with the Force.
they
'cause
get into a force fight.
she's trying to get Chewie back, and I'm pretty sure Kylo was trying to, like, pull it away from her to let it go.
Yeah, you can see it fighting, like, struggling
And
back
then
and forth.
you see,
I thought they were going to tear it in half.
I thought that might have been what was going to happen, but then you see
Rey gets a
just
little angry,
what Rey is capable of doing.
and just
And how strong she is in the Force. Like, I think some people forget how fast this trilogy happens.
right,
Like, she learned that she had the Force a couple years ago.
pretty much
Yeah, like a year and a few days.
a year and some change.
And in a year and a little bit of time, she zapped a ship out of the sky.
Yeah, and she uses Force lightning and just destroys the ship and makes everyone think, "Oh my God, she just killed Chewie." And I'm like, they're not going to do him like that. But okay, you guys can think.
I
that.
feel like it would have been a really cool arc if they'd have done it like that, though. Like, she does this whole redemption arc for Chewie, and that would have been cool. But I'm glad they kept him alive. I liked having him alive.
It would have been more bold than any decision I think that they made in the rest of the movie, to be honest, because that would have been a very substantial moment in the trilogy. If that's how Chewie goes, that would have been a stain that she would have had to have fought for a long time.
The Rotten Tomatoes scores, you'd have seen something very different. They're
Yeah,
like,
Chewie died and everybody
Rey, the Mary Sue, just blew up Chewbacca.
Well, that's the thing. The audience scores are just fine on Rotten Tomatoes.
I'm saying they probably would have been different had that happened. But I mean, I don't know. I could be wrong.
The complaints I don't think are against Rey throughout the
Yeah.
last movie that bombed.
That's
It's mostly
fair.
about
And Daisy Ridley's done a phenomenal job, and I think this was her best movie as far as the
I think
trilogy's
so too.
concerned.
I think she had more time to actually become like her real character.
Yeah, this was.
I like her a lot in this movie. I still think The Force Awakens is her best movie.
That's fair. So Chewie miraculously survives because there was two transports.
we didn't know about that one.
Didn't know about the second transport.
Why did they have a second transport?
They find out about the Wayfinder, and then they end up going to
Endor.
Kijimi,
Oh, they go to Kijimi first.
which is the
yes.
snow planet,
Yeah.
because they have to. Because we find out we get the dagger, and there's an encryption on it that is read in the ancient Sith language, which throwback to KOTOR, loved it.
C-3PO can read it.
C-3PO can read it, but his programming does not allow him to say it, so they have to go to Kijimi to meet with our new favorite character, Babu Frick, a little tiny dude that can reprogram droids.
He's a very soft-spoken character.
And it was very different, you know. I thought they were really just going to go ahead and wipe his memory, like, right there, and it wasn't going to come back. But, I mean, I kind of felt, R2, I was like, because they mentioned, he's like, isn't your memory stored in R2's, like, backup and all that? And they're
He
like,
said I wouldn't.
he's like, oh, I wouldn't put my odds on that. We all know how, like, faulty R2 can be with stuff. And I'm like, I see what you're kind of doing there.
It's like I can't trust R2 as far as I can throw him, and he can't throw him very far.
But it was pretty freaky, when they finally went ahead and shut him off.
Yeah.
And he comes back on with the red eyes, and you're like,
Dark
what
voice
is this?
and
Really dark protocol voice just reading out stuff, and then he just knocks out, comes back up. I am C-3PO, human cyborg relations. And you're like, okay, that's going to be a problem.
He's my oldest friend.
yeah,
Babu
Babu
Frick,
Frick is his
great
oldest friend. And then we meet, who was the new character that we met on the planet? She was the hunter looking
I don't
for...
remember her name.
Yeah, I don't remember her name.
I'll look it up real quick. But I loved her. Her character was shortly used, but I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was a very well-written character for the little bit that they used her.
Particularly in that moment and her relationship with Poe Dameron, that felt more like something out of the EU than anything else. And even in like the new canon, the new books, those kind of relationships are very prevalent, and that's definitely what that felt like to me. There are several moments in the Aftermath series that parallel kind of what just happened there, and I'm like, that is
Good.
wow, that was beautiful.
Good,
They done
yeah.
that so well. I loved that spin on the relationship. When the female bounty hunter like thing just she kind of swings around the corner, my first question was, is that Jasamari?
Jasamari.
Wait, what? Oh no, okay, different armor. Got it.
No,
Now
but,
I'm on board.
but yeah, the interaction that we had with her once we figure out her name, phenomenal. I was a big fan of her as a character, and how they wrote her was really, really good.
Zori Bliss is the character's
Zori.
name.
And obviously, I mean, you see that her and Poe had a past. We find out Poe was a spice runner.
You were a spice runner? Weren't you a stormtrooper? You were a spice runner? You were a scavenger? We can do this all night.
Poe is always brilliant.
Poe has got the quick lines.
He's the quick
like,
wit humor guy.
Like he's got the Thanksgiving clapbacks.
Yeah.
And I love it so much.
But
That's what makes him him.
yeah, he's the cocky pilot that we all know and love.
And it leads into a great fight on Kijimi between Rey and Kylo because they end up going on to the Star Destroyer
Star Destroyer
to
gets
find
his quarters.
Chewie. They get to his quarters. She finds the helmet. She finds the dagger, and they have that force connection again, back and forth in the fight between on the ship and on Kijimi, both in their respective spots. So like, I'm wondering like if you see it as a viewer, like if you were actually there in the room watching this happen, would you just be seeing her just wildly swinging at nothing, and then eventually like beads fall on the floor?
Yeah, probably.
Probably.
It's kind of insane.
And
I'm not so certain how that works. Eventually, I'm sure they'll probably explain it more. It's just the whole like force transfer of objects just seems kind of odd to me.
I really like how they shot that.
Yeah, it was shot beautifully.
It was
filmed.
shot. That had to be one of the most like complex things to shoot,
Yeah,
or like
it
to
had
cut
to be difficult.
together. Yeah,
For
But I think they pulled it off,
That the force ability is weird, but they made me believe it. There was no
Yeah.
part of me that was like, "Oh, that can't happen." There's no way that the force can do. No, the way they were pulling on that ability, it really made me fall and be like, "Oh, we don't know anything about the force."
And
yeah. There's a
there's
whole
so
lot.
much
Still
more
a whole lot we
And-
just don't know.
And they touched on that in The Last Jedi. I mean, we saw the scene with her and Kylo in the hut on Arc 2.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that same
remember
thing
that.
there when they got blown away, and even the first time it happened was the wave came up over Rey, and then we go back to Kylo in the hangar, and he kind of like wipes the water off his face.
Yeah.
So like we saw a little bit of something and when that first happened. I was like, that's different.
And I think that might just be part of their bond as well. I don't know if two regular, Jedi
Could
or
have a
Force
bond
who's
like
could do
that. I mean,
could
it's
just
very yeah,
pass
it's very
things back
possible.
and forth like that. Or if they did, it would take a lot of training.
Right, and then so they get captured on the Star Destroyer. We find out that there was a spy, and it was actually General Hux the whole time.
Oh, Domhnall Gleeson coming.
He tries to get away, and I thought I was like, are they about to tell me he's going to be like Agent Callus and he's going to turn into a good guy? I really don't really want that. But then he was just like, I don't really care if you guys win. I just don't want Kylo to win. I'm like, see, that's fair. After how he's been treated and how he didn't really he was arguing with him from the beginning.
He felt like he deserved to be the guy.
Yeah, he
when
was like,
Snoke
I should be
gone, he should.
And a lot of people felt the same way about Vader, like in the extended universe novels and all that. They're like, I don't know
Why-
who this guy is. I am the Grand Moff. I'm the guy in charge. Why is Vader here? He doesn't even have a rank. He's just a henchman of Palpatine, but we have to listen to him for some reason.
Because he is that man. Well, I mean, honestly, it's either listen to him or die. So
Oh yeah, that happened a lot. And the same thing, like we saw it in that boardroom meeting. Like Kylo just shoots a guy up into
he
the.
literally shoved him into the ceiling.
Yeah, I don't understand how it works. He just slams him into the ceiling, holds him there. I was like, I've saw this in Rogue One before, so that's kind of neat.
Yeah, that ability to just move through the force like that, where you have that kind of extended reach, and
I thought you were gonna mod him. I was like, oh no.
you'd have that kind of extended power and reach through the force. Was like, oh, this is cool.
Yeah.
This is really fun. And then going back to the full on transfer of objects when she goes and swings and then the beads or whatever fall.
Yeah,
over
like all the
floor.
beads full, and then the helmet just drops.
Yeah, that
I was just
like
like,
I
huh.
said, phenomenally shot.
Yeah, fantastic. And I love how Kylo was like, oh, so that's where you are.
He's like,
like,
yeah,
"We
he
found you."
See, that's the thing. He didn't freak out, and he was just like, oh, I can't believe that's mine. He was just like, lock down the ship. I know where she's at.
Well, didn't expect
And
that.
that's
her.
another thing I liked about this. They remade his helmet, and the same kind of concept. They said, anything behind a mask is scary because you don't know exactly what it is you're facing. he puts that mask back on, and he's like really like in charge of everyone. And again, I go back to that boardroom scene because he like turns, faces everyone, and he's talking. And I'm like, I'm starting to get that like fear back in me for this character now, because again, once behind that mask, it's just like a whole other being.
Yeah, I was actually about to say something like that, because like you can tell it's completely different when it's Kylo with the mask, Kylo without the mask.
Yeah.
You can see the conflict just on how the character's portrayed, which I think is a really, really good writing now that we're three movies into the trilogy's over. Like, that's really good writing. It's like Kylo is a different person when his mask is on versus when it's off.
Absolutely.
So
there's a lot there. We get through it. Finally, we're at the Death Star now. The remains of the Death Star 2.
Endor.
In the Endor system. It doesn't necessarily say where it's at. It doesn't because the moon of Endor was where Return of the Jedi took place.
So it's somewhere in the Endor
It's
system.
in the Endor system, so I don't think it's the same place. But I mean, it would make sense for it to be blown up and then gravity eventually pull it to different spots.
It's probably on.
And I think that was probably one of my favorite sequence in the movie.
Because we kind of got the callback to the Force Awakens of Rey being a scavenger and.
Well, I mean,
climbing
more
up the-
so just what happened inside. We get a little bit of a nostalgic throwback to Return of the Jedi. We see some old Stormtrooper helmets.
Yeah.
But she finds the throne room, and then that door that just opens, and then she ends up in that room full of mirrors. That's very similar to the Last Jedi cave with Octu, and then you see Dark Rey, and I wasn't expecting that to go like that at all.
It was amazing.
That moved really fast.
I'll say it was a very short fight, but it was one of those fight with yourself kind of things, which I thought was fine because everyone was like, "Is this going to be a clone? Is this a vision?" And really, it was
just kind of like
neither.
It was kind of like what happened in it's either Return of the Jedi or Empire.
Empire
with
the Dagobah cave.
Yes.
Yep.
I had a blank there.
The same thing. He's fighting Darth Vader, and he beheads him, and the mask blows up, and it's himself. He's like, "This is what you could become if you give into this kind of thing."
I think that's exactly what it was supposed to mirror, and I think it was more of a vision or a construct, I guess you could call it, like the cave. And I liked it. I was afraid that I wouldn't like whatever was going to happen with that Dark Ray situation, because it seemed too much like Empire, but for them to just go in and be like, and it's here, and she's fighting it, and she's scared, and now Kylo's here.
Yeah, and then it was done. I was just like,
and she said, "Don't give in to what you really are." I mean, and I think that also just points out just how much she's actually going through, like what she's actually fighting, and all that other stuff. And then Kylo comes in.
Yeah, and you think it might actually happen then, because they end up fighting Kylo on part of the Star Destroyer, which is crazy. Finn's trying to get involved, and she's like, "Absolutely not! You're going over there."
Straight shoved him somewhere.
And
Sent his ass.
and then Leia's trying to she knows what she has to do to get Ben back, and she ends up sacrificing herself to end up getting him to stop the fight. And in the process, Rey's just like stab.
Yeah.
And I thought that was going to be it. I was just like,
I was like, wow.
Okay, no redemption story for Kylo at all. He's just gonna die right there.
It's like
that would have been another bold choice.
I really did. I was like, wow, but then I was like, wait, no, she just healed that snake thing.
Yeah.
I know what they're gonna do here.
Well, when she first stabbed him, I was like, oh, that's bad, because I thought she was just going to go and heal him again. But she stops and was like, Leia, and I was like, oh, he might just die because she's stunned too. Oh, that's bad. That's really bad.
So it was a really different, really strong choice.
And she figured out what was going on.
But I thought it kind of slowly played to Return of the Jedi a little bit. The same thing, Luke injured Darth Vader. He was ready to strike him down. He said, "You know what? No, this isn't me. I'm not about this." So she ends up healing him, and then jacks his TIE fighter and leaves. And then he has that crazy moment with Han Solo.
Yeah, that moment was probably the strongest one in the movie for me. It was the one that that hit me the hardest.
It caught me off guard the most, for sure.
It was very different, but I see how it works. I like it in the movie. I'm glad it was just actually him, just instead of a ghostly apparition.
Instead of being a
memory.
Force ghost,
It was
Kylo's,
it was more just kind of in his head kind of thing, and I really liked that.
It was Kylo's conscious, essentially.
It kind of goes through what Kylo's been going through. He's been battling it for 3 movies.
And he wanted to do what he did from the start. Instead of stabbing him, he just turned and chucked his lightsaber straight out into the ocean.
And I liked the bit of dialogue that mirrored
The Force Awakens, the cutback. Yeah,
that was really, really cool.
I know what I have to do, but I don't think I have the strength to do it. And he said, "You do," instead of "Let me help you."
And he just said "Dad," and he just says, "I know."
He ends it with that. That was amazing.
That was a good one for sure.
That nearly took me.
It obviously took Kylo too. We got Ben back.
Yeah, we did.
That was officially the end of Kylo Ren.
Yep. And so he did get his redemption story, and then the rest of the movie takes place on Exegol. And
Before we go there, I would like to stop and talk about the Leia thing, because that's the only thing that took away from the movie for me.
yeah, so I do want to bring that up because that is an important part. It's a big part of the movie. Yes, it was great that they used extra footage from The Force Awakens to make this movie.
Mm-hmm.
It felt weird.
It kind of felt like it was forced, and it's going to.
Not so much that it was forced, but it just felt out of place.
I say forced from a sense of like you're forcing someone to talk to somebody that's already said their lines.
Yeah,
Fair.
it felt unnatural.
It didn't feel right. Yeah.
They definitely kind of pulled and twisted the footage. I think there might have even been some screening out. They might have put her against new backgrounds.
And even then, it's like, they were lines that were used, and some of them were fine, but again, there was like some lines that was just like, she would just kind of like, Rey would say something, and then you would just see Leia just kind of staring at her and not saying anything, and I was like, this is really creepy.
Or when she would talk to her, it's like her eyes were kind of just like a little
tracking
off.
somewhere else.
Yeah, and it felt hollow, especially during that sequence where they're like passing the lightsaber kind of back and forth. I was like, this didn't land.
Something was weird.
Yeah, I don't know how someone didn't see this.
But I mean, and there were some people that actually
Volume is a little low.
Or Brian is speaking up. Okay.
Blake the sneaky snake.
Brian needs to speak. Gotcha.
Oh, needs to speak up. Yeah, that's probably a thing. But yeah, I think it felt a little forced from the perspective of which I mean it. But I think for what it was, I mean, you kind of had to do it because you didn't want to CGI or you didn't want to get somebody else.
And
for what it was, I thought it was
for
good.
what it was. I thought it was respectful, and it was really the only way they kind of handled it that would have worked out.
I thought they handled it well for what they had.
Yeah.
I would have done something else with the story entirely, to be honest. I feel like they
From
probably had
Leia's perspective?
Yes. Because I think they probably had the idea, like, well, we can use this footage, we can make this work. And it was really well-intentioned, but I don't think it landed.
I don't think it landed at all because they were like, we have so much unused footage of Leia and Rey from Episode 7, and I was like, they made it sound like they had a whole lot more than what they used.
Yeah.
They probably had a lot to choose from. It wasn't that they were using a lot
That's
of it.
fair.
But realistically, the one thing that did work in that sequence was the first time we see Leia talk, and then Billy Lord comes in and interrupts her.
Yeah.
With like, hey, we've got this urgent message or whatever. That moment alone just put me in a place for a minute. And she's talking, like Leia's giving her little speech or whatever, and then she's like, sorry to interrupt, but we've got something really urgent going on over here. And I was like, oh my God, that hurts. That hurts so bad.
Blake, if you watch the movies, you would know.
We had this conversation last night, Blake. I'm telling you, watch The Mandalorian, and then I'll help you get through the rest of it.
That's all you got to do.
We'll all sit. Next time, I'm bringing him home with me, and we'll all sit down and watch them all.
Okay, you got to tie him to a chair because I know he doesn't like the original trilogy. He said it's too boring.
He thinks a lot of it's too boring.
I mean,
It's
and
the 1970s.
It's not for everyone,
and it's not
I'll
for
say
everybody.
that.
We talked about episode 1 last night, me and Blake did, and he also thinks that Jar Jar makes the movie entirely too goofy, and that's a valid concern as well.
He's already on to a good start.
Nah, okay. I mean, your call, dude.
But I think, where were we at?
Leia.
Yeah, I mean, I thought Leia was as good as it was going to be. I think.
Right. So
With that approach, yeah, probably the best they could have done. Still think they shouldn't have done that at all. But
So we got Exegol coming up, but before that,
Rey goes
Rey
back to
freaks
Octu.
out, goes back to Octu, crashes the ship, and is just throwing stuff at it. She throws the lightsaber.
Looked like the tree.
It did look pieces of the tree, yeah. Mm-hmm. But she throws the lightsaber, and then the Force Ghost of Luke catches it, and he's like, "What are you doing? Don't be stupid.
Don't disrespect a piece of equipment, a Jedi's piece of equipment, just like I did
Don't
last
respect
movie.
the Jedi's weapon.
Just like I almost killed 2 porgs in the beginning of the 8th movie.
It was very, very different. But then out of that, she figures out, yeah, sure, you are a Palpatine, but that doesn't mean blood does not mean you have to be that person. You can choose to be who you want. You know, you can choose to be better than what your ancestors have turned out to be. And then, big reveal there, you know, he gets, he's like, Leia would have wanted you to have this, and it ends up that Leia had a lightsaber, gives it to her. And then we see that pretty cool training sequence, you know, between Luke, a younger Luke and a younger Leia.
One of the best sequences of the movie.
Where Leia actually beats Luke, by the way.
100%, yeah. But then she's like, you know, this isn't what I need to be doing right now. You watched the first 2 episodes of The Mandalorian this morning?
Sick.
All right.
Dope.
I want to know what you thought.
I've spoken.
Blake, I got to know what you think. And so then we realized, you know, Leia was doing her Jedi training like we saw
Yoda
in the
is ugly.
Baby Yoda is ugly.
He's been on a tangent about how ugly that thing is.
All right, man. So now she's got the 2 lightsabers. She's got Luke's and Leia's, and I was like, okay, she's got both, you know, and I think that's great. In the EU, we saw a lot of Leia training. We didn't really get to see a whole lot of that now, but now we know that it was happening at one point. She had her own lightsaber. Everything was great. So now she's got the 2. Finally, we go to Exegol for the 3rd act, and what a 3rd act it is.
It is a phenomenal 3rd act. And I saw a couple reactions on Twitter after we got back. They said the first 2/3 felt kind of rushed or something like that. But he said the last third of the movie was one of the best in cinema.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was really
very
well played
done.
out. So yeah, like we end up getting in there. There's this giant like Sith temple, pretty much, and they're getting ready to do this essence transfer where Rey's gonna strike down Palpatine and he's gonna inherit her body, which we kind of thought there was some rumor about that happening. I'm glad they were like, yes, this is a thing, but we're not going to do it.
And we kind of get a little bit of story of like Palpatine wasn't going to take her to captive to make her into the First Order, that they were making her to sit on the throne.
Hey, you're gonna keep watching it tonight, Blake. I mean, there you go. He said he actually kind of liked it, so
There you go.
let it play out.
Episode 3 is my favorite episode, so I think you'll like it.
Say let it play out. Let us know what you think. Hoping you'll at least try to enjoy some of it.
Yeah, because he asked me a couple weeks ago. He asked if it was like the same like story arc as the Star Wars movies, and I was like, it's in the same timeline, but it's not the same.
Yeah, it's completely separated. Before we go any farther, I do want to step back a little bit because I'm forgetting stuff. On Oct 2, the way she gets off the island, you know, Luke uses the Force and pulls his X-Wing out of the ocean that's been sitting there for who knows how long.
For however long he's been there.
But it was a perfect callback again to Empire Strikes Back when he was like, I can't do it. It's too heavy. You know, you wanting the impossible. And then it came full circle again like Yoda did with him, and he did the same thing for Rey. And then she ends up being called Red 5, and it's pretty great. So she lands.
She's got the helmet,
she's
too.
getting ready to. Yeah, she's got the helmet on.
That's
she's
really
getting
cool.
ready to take on Palpatine in some way, and then Ben shows up in an old school TIE fighter, which I thought was.
That was pretty nice.
I was like, okay, but where'd you get that?
Yeah,
I was like, where'd you get that?
That's pretty cool. Where'd you get it?
So
He
and
pulls
they end
up.
up.
I wonder if he had somehow had Han's blaster.
He did have a blaster on him.
Somehow.
I don't know whose it was, but probably not. But that's where we get into more of the Force transfer stuff. He runs into the Knights of Ren, and we're like,
oh
no. Great. And he starts getting the shit kicked out of him.
Yeah, he gets beat around.
He gets
a
his
little
shit pushed in a little bit.
And then the same thing, you know, like Rey's got the lightsaber lit up, ready to go. I'm going to go ahead and strike you down. Puts it behind her back, and it's gone.
Oh, wait.
Because she's got that connection with Ben, and
Ben's
Ben
got
just
it.
like, oh, look at that, guys. I have a lightsaber now.
You guys have lost. Have fun.
I love how the instant change happened too, where she puts her hand behind her back and pulls it away, and it's gone. And then when he pulls his up and he's got the lightsaber, the Knights of Ren were all like,
It's like, dang it.
We thought we had a chance here, and then she just starts cutting around because, like, that was the one flaw I saw with the Knights of Ren. I was like, none of them have like laser-powered weaponry. It's all like some of them had blasters, but the rest of them just had like straight up just
like axes, battle axe.
hammers, axes, melee weapons that look pretty scary. Probably
Terrifying.
yeah, I was like, they look like Legions of Doom. Just like, this is creepy.
but also at the same time, there probably weren't any Jedi to hunt during the
That's
Knights of Ren
fair.
era, so there's not really a worry about laser weapons.
Pretty much, yeah. So
Yeah, they're kind of like, I wouldn't say glorified bounty hunters, but they're kind of bounty hunters in a sense.
right. But then we also got this big space battle that's going on at this time. So there's this conflict going on the ground between Ben, Rey, and Palpatine, and then in the air,
You're
shit's
fighting
going down.
A lot of Star
We've
Destroyers.
got legions of Star Destroyers getting ready to wipe out the entire galaxy from the unknown regions. The
A
resistance
very
is being
small
torn apart.
fleet.
R.I.P. Snap Wexley. I cried.
Yeah, I cry every time.
And then they're like, what are we supposed to be doing? They're going to take out the comm tower, but the comm tower doesn't work. There's another comm tower on the capital ship, which is a First Order Star Destroyer. What happens? They're like, we got to take that out too. They managed to take it out, but everyone's getting shot down.
They
and you're
almost
just
like, I mean, you were at the point where it looked like Poe was ready to just say, "Let's give it."
there's a Sith TIE fighter that gets taken out from a bow and arrow.
That was actually really cool.
Yeah.
What a
was really
shot.
But yeah, I mean, it when all hope was lost, it seemed with Poe just like, we're done.
Everyone's calling. Is like, Poe, what are your orders? What do we got to do? And he's just like,
I wish.
he's like, I don't know. I need help.
But guess who did? Lando
And
did.
then Lando shows up with
The crew.
the entirety.
The galaxy is here.
It was ridiculous because like no one wanted to help them before when their distress signal went out on Crate. No one around the galaxy. They heard it, but they were just like, no.
Eh.
I think it's because they thought at that moment they were snuffed out. They thought that if we show up, we'll be the only ones because the rebellion is dead now.
Yeah,
Or the resistance in this case, I guess. But
pretty much. And then, we see a lot of people show up. We see the ghost from Rebels. We don't get any glimpses from Hera or anything like that, so we don't know who was driving the ghost, but it was the ghost. You got the Falcon and literally everyone else.
You got probably every ship in Star Wars history in that.
If you look at those couple frames, I could probably point out quite a few of them. And
yeah,
all
that's
that.
what I was saying.
I saw a
noticeable
couple
ship.
medical frigates. That was like the one ship I know like really quickly. I saw a couple calamari cruisers. There's probably some more in there too. I guarantee if I look hard enough, I can find the Outrider.
I mean, when it goes out on Disney Plus, you'll just be able to pause it. You can just
I'm definitely gonna buy it on Blu-ray too. And I'll
Yeah.
just sit there and do the same thing and be like, okay, I know that one. I know
pause,
that one.
and they'll be like, "These are all the ships."
But and then again, everyone's just like, yeah, we got all the ships. We're winning against this army. And then Palpatine's like, check this out. I use all of the Force lightning I have available, and just destroy everything. And then
But how we got there was something I wasn't sure was possible. He literally
sucked the life.
sucked the Force out of Rey and Kylo,
Which
Rey and
is
Ben.
a real thing too in the games. There's a ability in Knights of the Old Republic. We were introduced to a Force ability called Force Drain, where you literally just drain the life out of your enemy and you gain health.
And
from
of
it.
course, I mean, Palpatine had like mangled fingers.
He had mangled fingers. He was blind. He was just literally hooked up to life support, and then he literally drained the essence out of both Ben
became Palpy.
and Rey, and became full blown Revenge of the Sith Palpatine.
And his robes were fire.
Yeah, his new Sith robes were pretty fire. Looked pretty similar to Revenge of the Sith.
Mm-hmm.
He even tried to use the line Return of the Sith, and I was like, I don't think that one's gonna happen.
Buddy.
So yeah, so they end up stopping the Force lightning. So the ships come back online and start taking out Star Destroyers left and right. It's crazy, and
He said we're gonna take out the last Skywalker just like I was,
And
and
he
push Ben down a
throws
down a hole.
Ben off a cliff, and we're like, well, there goes Ben. I guess we're not seeing him again.
Rest in peace to the
And
Skywalker
then
family.
More Force lightning, and Rey is holding it off, and she uses both lightsabers and holds it off, which I thought was pretty cool.
That one was really nice.
And completely blasts him into just atoms.
Yeah, and I think the lines,
He had a very Voldemort death.
the lines. Well, I think it was it was what Voldemort's death should have been. Because Voldemort just kind of fell down and turned into pixie dust, whereas Palpatine kind of got decimated.
He got the Terminator 2 nuke scene.
And then I like the line where Palpatine says, "I'm all the Sith," and then she takes the other lightsaber and says, "I'm all the Jedi," and just absolutely slaps him. It reminded me a lot of Endgame though.
But she uses all her power
With
to.
the I am inevitable and I am Iron Man.
Yeah,
it
pretty
reminded
much.
me of that.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah.
But she uses all of her power, destroys Palpatine, and what happens? She literally dies.
She literally died.
falls over and dies.
And then, lo and behold, just like Palpatine did, somehow Ben Solo survived too.
Crawls out.
Crawls out of the hole.
Uses essence transfer, like force healing.
Well, an important note is that he's on the verge of death as well. He's
Yeah.
literally dragging himself to check
He's
on her.
falling over, like literally crawling to her.
Great acting.
Saves her by giving his life for hers.
We have the Reylo
They
moment.
have their Reylo moment. They do kiss. I don't really care for it, but he dies, and I was like, well, that's sad.
I liked that because it feels at least earned, if nothing else.
Yeah, I felt
That's
like
fair.
if there was any way that it was going to happen, this is the way that it needed to happen.
And then-
and I felt like it was kind of written. Like you knew it
Yeah,
was going to happen in
kind
episode
of.
8.
And then it happens. He ends up dying, and she's like, "Wait, no, you just saved me. This isn't. What do you mean?" And then he fades into the Force at the same time that Leia does.
I think that was a really, really, really well done.
That hurt.
Really well done.
And then
And then it's
they
all
end up
safe.
they end up saving the day. They go back to their jungle planet, which I'm pretty sure was unnamed. Either that or it was listed online somewhere. I haven't seen it.
I think it might have been listed online, but I don't think it says it in the movie at any point.
We did get a cameo from Wedge in the gunner seat of the Falcon. I thought that was pretty
That
great.
was sick.
I love me some Wedge Antilles. We didn't get Nora, and I'm sad, but oh well.
Yeah, I wish we could have gotten some more of those little
Nods
side
to other
pulled
characters
up.
because Rey is laying there like getting ready to die, and then she hears all the voices of the Jedi in her head. We've got
Both.
Luminara Unduli, Aayla Secura, Ahsoka Tano, Qui-Gon Jinn, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Yoda,
Both Obi-Wans.
Ada Gallia,
Kanan.
Kanan, thank you. I was gonna say I'm missing one. Anakin. So
I was
we
about
had
to say, I thought I heard Anakin.
we had everyone's voices in there just crawling into her, and I thought it was amazing.
Good old Yoda.
I was listening. I was like, I love all of these characters. Yes, and then the last one I heard was Qui-Gon, and I was like, I'm gonna lose it right here. And then that's how she overcomes it and becomes who she needs to be.
Sidebar, I wonder how much money they made for doing that. Sam Jackson probably made a good amount of money.
Oh
just
yeah,
to say that.
Mace Windu's voice was in there too when they're all just saying like "Rise," and they all had their like little quotes. Ewan McGregor had "These are your final steps," as opposed to "These are your first steps." What he said in The Force Awakens, which was great.
It was an amazing way to put a bow on a story.
And then so it all happens. They get back. They've won. We see kind of glimpses, kind of like in Return of the Jedi. We see Star Destroyers falling down all over the place. We see it on Endor. We see it on
City.
Bespin near Cloud City. There was a couple more. I'm not really sure where. There was one in Jakku that crashed right next to
The one that was already there from the battle.
crashed next to Sienna's Star Destroyer from the Lost Stars series. I cry every time. And then it ends up with her leaving and going to Tatooine.
Where she buries Luke and Leia's
She goes back
lightsaber.
to the I don't know if actually I think it's called the Homestead,
Yeah, I think it is.
which is where Luke grew up, and that's where Owen and Owen, Lars, and Beru were there.
Mm-hmm.
She buries their lightsabers in the sand, and we get a cool little shot of something because she slides down into like the base of the house because it's just covered in sand. And you notice the top of her staff is attached to her belt, almost like a lightsaber. Everyone called it from the beginning. They're like, the top of that looks it looks like the emitter from Darth Maul's lightsaber, so it's possible. So obviously she took the top of her staff and fashioned it into her own lightsaber.
And it was yellow, orange.
Yep, she buries the lightsabers and ignites hers with that cool little like turning mechanism. And then we see a new blade. It's orange, yellow, call it what you like. It's kind of hard to tell, really.
Then we see the woman that comes by and says, we haven't seen anything
there's
like
an
you in a
older-
long
There's
time.
an older woman. She's like, who are you? And she's like, I'm just
Rey.
Rey. Rey who? And then she looks over. She's the ghost of
Luke and
Luke
Leia.
and Leia. I cry. And she says Rey Skywalker. Which, obviously, that's not who she is. But it's from what Luke said, just,
It doesn't matter if...
blood doesn't define you. Be who you think you should be, kind of thing.
So you kind of get the Rey Skywalker that people like...
So you could like that, you could not, but I mean...
Yeah, some people wanted her to be a Skywalker. And this is a way for them to be satisfied in a sense, like, she sees herself that way.
And I think the way that they wrapped it up, I would have been a little upset had she actually been a Skywalker throughout.
Yeah, like...
I would have too.
I feel like it was done well to the fact that she was not a Skywalker.
Yeah, and my thing is when she looks over and she sees Luke and Leia like watching her, and especially it has like the throwback Luke and Leia look to it as well. Leia's got the old robes, like the Princess of Alderaan kind of style going on. Luke has got like the should have never left the Jedi Order kind of appearance on him. But you can see his age and stuff and what the wisdom he gained through that. They're looking at her, smiling, like seeing that this has fully come to a wrap.
Yeah.
And she was the last remaining thread to the Skywalker family. So for her to take up that name, I had no problems with it because it felt like you can't just let that go.
Yeah,
you can't
absolutely.
just let the name, this is the moment it died in history, there are no more Skywalkers and you're done. I feel like that was thematically appropriate.
Yeah.
And in that moment you get this kind of earned satisfaction where Leia had to be forced to shame over the fact that her father was Darth Vader and like he did all these terrible things and now Luke is gone, and the Skywalker name is attached to a lot of wild stuff in the Star Wars universe. But had she kept the Palpatine last name, she's been pretty much public enemy number one.
Yeah, and now
Even
it's gotten
though
to a
she's a
point
Jedi.
where like everyone said Luke Skywalker was a myth, so it's kind of like almost being free of the burden of having that name. So she says, "Yeah, I'm Rey Skywalker," and you're like, Okay.
Cool. I feel like there's room to go, and we've talked about this since we saw the movie. I feel like in 25, 30 years, I feel like they could get Daisy back on to kind of not necessarily continue a story of the Skywalker saga because it's over, but like run her own, like
Be
make a
Obi-Wan to the Luke.
make a cameo into a movie. Like there's a youngling or a younger Jedi that is in her academy.
I could see if Star Wars decides to stay with safer routes, and not kind of like overdo it,
Maybe
and
like a
keep
Yoda-esque
going,
role.
and they do go like another 20, 30 years. I could see eventually they bring her in for a small cameo or something like that.
Yeah.
I think she could even be a feature character in a film because we've only ever gotten characters that were, you were in the trilogy before. Okay, cool. You can have an appearance here, but you can't be like the main thing in the movie. There's nothing to me that says that like you couldn't get these three back together in 10, 15 years.
Absolutely.
And be like, there's some kind of non-Skywalker related force, some kind of just outside invasion, something's going wrong, and they need to go together to take care of that.
Yeah, I mean,
there's nothing that says that can't happen, especially
and
if
I
they're
think
breaking
that
out
would
of trilogy format.
Yeah, and I mean, as the Skywalker arc is over, everything else after that, we don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, obviously the Benioff and Weiss trilogy that is no longer a thing was going to be.
It was going to go back in time.
It was going to go back in time,
We'll
and
do
there's
some of the
rumors
Old
that
Republic
the
stuff.
Ryan Johnson's trilogy is going to go ahead in time.
Yeah, Ryan Johnson's trilogy is supposed to be farther into the future away from the Skywalker saga, so completely brand new territory, really on both ends.
I feel like
More so on the future end, just because we really don't know what they're going to do.
I feel like we'll get a book about Rey bringing up her own academy. I think that would be a cool book.
Maybe.
Or comic, either.
I don't know if she'd bring up her own academy or if she would just, be herself.
I think she would train.
I would
some
think more.
people.
I would think more so on the training. So otherwise, they wouldn't have done the whole lightsaber thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, who knows?
I think she'll train. I don't know. Maybe it might not be an academy, but she'll have some people that she'll train.
I think that's the purpose of The Last Jedi, is to remind you, like, wherever this goes next, there's always someone. Someone's going to need help. We saw the broom kid. He calls the broom over to him with the Force, and suddenly it's like, well, we know there are more.
Yeah.
And that's like the first like spark of hope again. You're like, right, there is goodness in the galaxy. There are people with the Force that are good, inherently good people, which sets up Rey's arc through the end of the next movie perfectly.
Yeah.
But also gives her a place to go next. She can do the Luke thing and kind of just roam the galaxy and make sure that everything is safe and that she can be relaxed in being Rey Skywalker. That she can just, I don't have to worry about there being the First Order or there being Palpatine or Snoke or whoever. Like, we know for sure that at least these threads to the dark side and the Sith are gone. And maybe something else comes. But what could be worse than Palpatine?
Pretty much, yeah.
That's
The Yuzong Vong.
the idea. Obviously, yes, the EU was trying to
Yeah,
say
zip-zap.
the Yuzon Vong were way worse than Palpatine. You have to be ready.
Doesn't matter.
We're like 50 years out from that now. If you want to go back to it, sure, cool, I guess. I don't particularly like that idea.
As of now, I mean, we haven't seen anything, and I don't know if we will see anything like Palpatine ever in the universe again.
Even in the EU, like, sure, the Yuzong Vong were bad, but, like, the Yuzong Vong were legions as opposed to just one singular person.
Palpatine was one dude that was absolutely just.
And I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure, like, the original Star Wars timeline stopped at 127 ABY, and that was the last. That's as far as they got before it was turned into Legends.
I think, yeah.
Because it was like one of the descendants of Luke. I can't remember his name at all. I think it was like, I don't think it was Cal, but there was something close. Cade Skywalker was one of them, but there was more. I can't remember which one was the last one, but it kept going. But again, it continued the whole Skywalker thing for 100+ years.
I mean, I think we need to face like some sort of like that. This is not possible without Skywalker,
And that's fair.
I feel like no matter what happens in Star Wars, I feel like the Skywalkers are going to be involved in some way, shape, or form.
Of this era, yes.
But
no,
it's not going to be like the saga where everything like the
is directly
the
related.
prequels is about Anakin becoming Darth Vader. The sequels is about his redemption, and then the sequel trilogy is about Rey building up and ultimately becoming a Skywalker, even though she's a Palpatine. And
right.
Ben's
But
redemption
now I
as
think
well.
Star Wars ends off in a good place to go beyond that and finally flesh out more stories that aren't just directly related to this one family. That just caused all of the problems for the galaxy.
I wouldn't
I'd
say it's
say
just one
Palpatine
family.
caused all the
I was about to say
problems.
Palpatine's part of that.
But then even then, going beyond Palpatine into other issues that may occur.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah, getting past this episode of the galaxy's problems. We know from the Old Republic that there's plenty of stuff to go back to and look at and pull from. If you want to go into the past and examine that stuff,
Yeah.
things that led us here, and then in the future, now it's an open board. They have this slate in front of them. As far as I know, unless one of the books has some kind of mention of a relative or something, this is the furthest we are in the Star Wars timeline.
Absolutely.
So all ahead is unknown.
Yeah, and that's why I'm really excited for Project Luminous. We got a lot of new books coming out in 2020. But closing thoughts, final thoughts. Out of 10, what would you rate The Rise of Skywalker?
I give it probably about an 8.5 out of 10 because I do really like the movie. People say it's video gamey. There's a lot to not like. I think a lot of it hit for me. The only thing I don't like is Leia's the way they handled her appearance.
Yeah.
It still sits with me wrong. Otherwise, really enjoyed where we're at with it. So yeah, 8.5.
I was thinking around the 8.5.
8.5?
Yeah, I was thinking about the same. I mean, you look at it. I mean, yeah, people are gonna say it's fan servicey, but I mean, at the end of the day, isn't Return of the Jedi kind of fan servicey too?
And a complete departure from 5 when 5 was a complete departure from 4. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah,
It's almost like we did the exact same thing twice.
So I
Star
mean,
Wars.
I get where people are frustrated, but I mean, this trilogy is a lot like the original. In from a skeleton sense, 4 and 7 are very similar. 5 and 8 are very similar from a standpoint of what they were.
Yeah.
And 6 and 9 were 6 and 9. You saw the scene of Palpatine showing Luke in Return of the Jedi, the fleet getting destroyed, and you saw the same thing in 9, except for they opened a giant hole in the top.
And they also kind of did the same thing in the end of 8 too, because the end of 8 was very similar to 6.
So I mean, I get where people are frustrated that it's not what it was, but it kind of is what it was.
Yeah.
But I liked it. I mean, the music, we haven't even touched on the music. One of John Williams' best, in my opinion.
It was good. I loved it.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
I've only listened to about half
Phenomenal.
of it. I'm probably going to listen to the other half later, but
I'm
now,
gonna revisit the soundtrack.
the last track being called A New Home hits different.
Yeah.
that was
the music in the moment, not necessarily the soundtrack. I haven't listened to the whole soundtrack either, but in the movie, phenomenal.
Yeah.
It was great.
Finally, I give it an 8 out of 10. Just a flat 8. That's subject to change depending on if I see it again and if something changes my mind about it. But I don't think so. I'm pretty sure I'm going to stick with a 8 out of 10. But any final thoughts? Because that's all I got on it. I enjoyed the movie. It's finally over. Now we get to just look forward to the future of Star Wars and what new things will come.
Or the past, technically.
Or the past.
I love it as a conclusion to the saga. A lot of people were saying that. Oh, I don't like it as a conclusion. It doesn't do what I don't care.
It was
Me
a great.
personally, I think it closed it out on a fantastic note. I love seeing the throwback Leia and Luke stuff. That was awesome. I love the Leia training thing. It establishes something that I kind of already suspected, and we kind of touch on in the books a little bit. Yeah, I was all in on that.
And the entire
portion of it.
saga ended with one main villain.
Yep.
Just like the Infinity Saga.
Pretty much,
You
yeah.
had a bunch of side villains, but at the end of the day, Thanos was the guy. I mean, Palpatine was the guy.
Technically, there were 2 in the.
Infinity,
Anyway, it's fine.
But the end game, no pun intended, was Thanos.
But
Well, there's 2 Thanoses.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Oh, we'll
but
see.
any final notes?
That's all I had, man. The lightsaber being kind of part of the staff. I really wanted to see it go double-sided.
I did
I've
too.
been rooting for that since The Force Awakens.
I have
See,
too.
I was hoping for it as well. I thought it might have, but the end of it does.
The yellow gave me hope because a lot of the
yellow part I thought was cool. I was like having at least a different color. I was like, I'll accept that.
Yeah, it's fine. I just, like I said, since The Force Awakens, I wanted to see her.
I was really hoping
lightsaber.
she would take Rey's, or she was going to take Leia's lightsaber and Luke's lightsaber. When she wrapped them up, I was like, she going to use the Force and meld them together into one double-bladed lightsaber? I was about to be like...
I thought it was really cool that they buried... I thought it was really cool that, in a sense, Leia and Luke ended together just like they started together as twins.
Yeah, that was kind of nice.
That was a pretty good wrap. I think they wrapped the bow on the saga. Excuse me.
On the
very
second
well.
half.
Yeah, I was going to say, they really did just close it together. They brought it all back. It's done.
It's
But,
crazy.
Yeah.
That's all I got, man.
That's it, and that was our review of Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. The saga's officially finished. Everything's just new from here on out, and who knows what that's going to be. But you guarantee that if there's any news on that, we will definitely be covering it. If not live on JMN, it's definitely going to be on my YouTube channel, which you can click this link right here. It's not a click link, but you can go to that link, and it'll bring up my channel. But that's it for this episode of JMN. I'm Joker. Once again, this is Splash. This is Brian. Thank you so much for being on the show today. It was a great time. You can check out all of us at our @ right there for Twitter. If you like what you saw, just you can leave a sub, you can follow, do whatever you'd like. And for those of you watching on YouTube instead of live on Twitch, be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you guys so much for stopping by, and we will see you guys next week.
See ya.
Tell us where you cried.
On the team is a good thing. Hella fun montage movie scene.